Good afternoon and welcome. You are with the Skeinz Diaries. I am Marie here, Monday, 13th of February. Welcome along, and I am so sorry that I'm running an hour late. Hopefully, you got the notification that we popped out on Facebook in the Speak Easy. Typical first, yeah. As some may or may not be aware, the top half of the North Island here in New Zealand is under the cloud, literally under the cloud of cyclone or ex-tropical cyclone Gabrielle. So, good afternoon, Margaret. Welcome along. So, of course, I have been across at the mill, and we've been having not only our regular Monday meeting, but also staff meetings and meetings in terms of cyclone preparedness this morning. So, I needed the extra time. As you can imagine, there's lots to you don't know what you don't know. And whilst it is pretty consistently raining here at the moment, it is what I would call a pretty atypical, very rainy day. We have yet to get the extreme winds or the big rain, which is all really starting, well, according to the Met Service for us here in the city, to kick off in the next hour or so. So we're just sort of having to make sure, and after the 2020 floods, which did flood quite extensively through Onikau, where we are and where the mill is. Many of you may remember it went quite viral on social media, the shipping containers sailing down the middle of the road. Well, that was only 2 streets over. So we're just making sure that we have got everything as prepared as we possibly can be if the weather is to turn to custard for us here last night, or tonight rather. So hence the reason why I'm late, but I'm here now, so it's all good. And I put on a little bit of yellow to try and bring a little sunshine, or at least know that down south you've got wonderful lots of sunshine and everything is fabulous, as always things are down in the South Island and places farther aflung. So welcome along. Everyone is here. Blowing a gale in the Bay of Plenty says so. Yeah, and I hope everyone Auckland, Northland is doing okay, and Coromandel, you and Bay of Plenty too. You've all been. I mean, we've all had a very wet summer, but you guys have been especially hammered. So I hope you're all staying safe and curling up and at least able to do some knitting. I spoke with the best friend actually late yesterday, about 6 o'clock yesterday, and they'd had no power pretty much for all afternoon. They'd lost power for a few hours in the morning. He's in Auckland, and then they got a window in the for a couple of hours, and then they lost power again for 4 hours. So needless to say, there was lots of wine that had been drunk at their household yesterday. But that's all right. Good news for me is I've been doing a ton of knitting. Haven't bought it in, and I think it's because, well, I know why I haven't bought it in. I've not bought it in because I'm getting very close to being finished. I've got about this much left to do in the second sleeve and the neckline, and then I am done. I do need to wet block it. And to be fair, that's not going to be happening or getting wet blocked or dried anytime soon. But fingers crossed, maybe by later in the week, I'll be able to bring that in and show it to you all finished and completed. So that is where I'm actually sort of looking at doing that. I should turn the camera around. I'm going to turn this around really sneakily because this is, look, they're measuring stuff up. Here we go, Heather and Claire doing the big measure up, so we can try and get our shelves, those shelves that you can see, up off the ground in case we get flooding. So that's what we're up to here. Anyway, yes, so that's where I'm going to, fingers crossed, I'll be able to, next time I talk to you for diaries, I will actually have a completed love note blocked if the weather goes according to plan, and I can show you on that. I'm really, like, I managed to get 2 periods of time over the weekend where I really got a clear run at it, and it was wonderful, absolutely wonderful to do that, and it was great. And it is so nice when you get such a clean run. And I had some trashy telly on, and I just went for it, and it was great, very, very satisfying. To that end, I'm already thinking, this is the thing, now that this project is nearly finished, I'm already thinking and planning for the sort of next couple of projects. And what I've actually gone and done today is I'm in the planning stages, because a little bit of prep work I think is going to be involved for this, is in this Intarsia project for Knit August Nights that that Ethan and I are sort of planning. So I think I showed you guys, I've got this lovely Rowan book called Summer and Winter. I think this is circa, when is this circa? I think it's early 90s, this one. I'll tell you in a second. This is part of my oopsie daisies designer collection. Where are we? First published in 87. There you go. And this is the design that I've chosen. This one here. And I think, what's it called? It's called Flower Sweater. And I'm undecided yet whether I'm going to do it as a sweater or whether I'm going to do it as a cardigan. Either way, it is just designed as a simple wide boat neck sweater, drop-shouldered. So that gives me heaps of possibilities. But the first thing I'm wanting to do is actually get some of the colours sorted out and nailed. And as you can see on this, I actually don't mind the colour layout quite so much that they have on this. I'm not quite overly as fond on some of the browns, particularly this brown up in the shoulder here, but the rest of it is yeah, I'm likey. So if you're then wondering how do you narrow down the colors, this is one way that you can do it, hence the reason why I'm clutching colored pencils. One of the things that I did, and why we love these books so much, isn't necessarily for the full designs, but it is for the charts. The charts is what we're after. In Intarsia, charts is everything. That's what you want, is your charts. So as I'm knitting Stornoway, which is this lovely yarn here, for my love note, I have really fallen in love with this yarn. I just love it. And every time I knit Southlander, I just adore it. It is a fabulous yarn. It is, and the colour in this, it just looks great. It's performing well. And I love it so much that I think I really want to work with this. And this sweater, as you saw at the base, had a dark purple at the bottom of this, which I think this would be perfect for. So that got me thinking that if I want to do this project in Stornoway, how would it look with the rest of the colours? Because there's a light blue in there. There's another sort of purpley colour there. There's actually, theoretically, I think, as I turn this around, there is, just looking at it, there's 8 colours involved. The biggest of which is sort of that purple and then the cream. So I have decided, I thought, right, time to get the coloured pencils out and start doing some colouring in, which is what I'm doing. And I'm just sort of, I'm selecting pencils that are as close to the colours in the shop that I want to do. And this is a really good way for you to actually figure out where you want to move with the colours, particularly if you want to change them. A lot of these colours are very similar. I have this for the purple. There is a light blue in there, which, boom, Scotch mist. There is a really rich sort of a melody teal colour, which I can actually put Brigadoon in. So far, so good. So that is colours C is cream. There is our cream. Colour B is sort of a taupey colour. I sort of thought instead of taupe, because the colour B is actually lots of little flower heads. Instead of taupe, I would actually do, this is Grace and Trudy Myrtle collection. So that would be that shade. So this is as far as I've got in B. C is the cream. D, what was the D, people? D was this brown. Like, it's sort of like a clay coloured brown. I'm not 100% sold on that, but that shade sits next to, it's sandwiched in between, and there's not a lot of it, but most of it sits sandwiched around cream. And just looking at the rest of it, yeah, cream and one other colour, and cream, and I know, Marie, what colour it is. Cream, and yeah, it is mostly the cream, actually. Cream and the blue. So what I'm looking at potentially doing is, the cream and the turquoise. that is potentially the way I'm looking at going. And this is Storyteller, and Storyteller is the same shade. It's a tonal shade as the Grace, but this is on the oatmeal base and this is on the bracken base. And I think that this will be the way to go because it will keep it as part of the same story. And then there's also a secondary blue in there and a secondary purple. So the purple, instead of a grapey colour, which they have, I'm looking at going this Glencoe. So then it keeps it all. Then I've got all four colours used, and the Glencoe ties in there. And last but not least, the last blue in there, which is they've got a mid-toned blue. So this is the light blue. That's the mid-tone blue, and then we've got dusky blue. And those are all the colours. And they all, if I pull them all up together, if I've got enough fingers to be able to do this, by the time you throw them all together, they all seem to work. And your two major pops, I don't have enough arms. Your two major pops are these two here, particularly the cream. The cream's your big pop and that lighter Scotch mist. And then all these other colours sort of work together. So it's going to be, I think, quite a nice, they're all going to work. That's the feeling at this stage. There's enough richness in there, but there's also the beautiful tonal textures of the heathered yarns, especially the Stornoway, which goes around. And almost all the Stornoway sits adjacent to either cream or Scotch mist. So you've got really, really good contrast between those three colours. So that is the planning. So I'm just going to just have a little play around. I have photocopied off more in case I want to go in a different direction, but I'm sort of really feeling the vibe there. And once I get a little bit of a colour plan going, I'll do a quick little colour mock-up here, which will just sort of give me a visual idea that when I actually start painting with the stitches, it will work really well. Maureen's asking, would one of the cascades work in place of the clay brown? It totally would, Maureen. What I'm wanting to do is keeping all the textures the same. So that's why I'm looking between Southlander, Highlander heathers and Truly Myrtle, because they're all spun to exactly the same count. However, you were exactly right, Maureen. The beautiful thing about if you're wanting to do something in Taja like this, you could actually do the entire thing in the cascades and get colours really close to the pattern if you wanted, or at least create your own colour palette. And then the other one I just quickly grabbed while we were, and just speaking of that sort of clay colour, is that vintage and Intage are a really happy place, and there are all those sort of colours there. If I wanted to go and do this from a vintage perspective, I could play around and do that as well. So there are loads and loads of different options, and don't be afraid to give yourself a bit of time to actually start doing some planning. And sometimes we just want to dive in and cast on, right? And just get really stuck in and not sort of check gauges and do things. We just want to quick, rush. But actually, sometimes spending a little bit of time and doing some planning on this is actually loads of fun. And see, for me, I know that I know what gauge I'm going to get with this yarn. I also know, having played around with it and knitting my love note using a 5mm needle, that's actually a really, really lovely fabric. So I actually think I'm going to actually upsize the gauge a little bit on this, and that will have a two-toned effect. The two-toned effect is this pattern is, as I mentioned, I think the other day, only goes up to the measurements. Let's have a look. Yeah, 38-inch bust. Yeah, that was such a long time ago. However, if I actually increase that gauge, because they're looking at a tension of 20 stitches to 28 rows. I'm not looking at pulling it out heaps, probably 18 stitches, but that just buys me a little bit more openness, and then it means the extra real estate that I need to build in, which is at the sides of this chart. So if this is going to be my back, these outside lines is to that 38-inch level. Well, if I'm going to be adding essentially another 10% in gauge, so then that will take me from 38 inches to 10% of that, so it's another 3 inches, so 41 inches, which is getting closer to where I need to be. But I still really want, for me, I'd want to be somewhere in the vicinity of around that 44 to 48 inch mark if I'm wanting a relaxed sort of sloppy Joe type cardigan, which is where I'm feeling that this is going, to sort of pay homage to those sorts of sort of late 80s, early 90s type intarsia pieces. So I am going to need to build some extra real estate in here. Now, the nice thing is, if you can imagine this is the back, I can easily build real estate in here, no problems whatsoever. And not only that, by building the extra real estate, I can also offset this chart a little bit too, if I want to. Now, I don't think I'll necessarily need to. I think having a little bit of extra purple real estate around the side is going to be just fine, because I'm potentially looking at bringing that Stornoway colour all the way around to the front. I haven't quite decided whether or not I take a little, and this is why I'm going to be colouring in these elements here more readily. And you can see that's petals there for a flower that I'm just doing. There are stamens. I might actually change this colour out yet. Here are other petals, and I might just take a little element of this, whether it be this little snapshot here, that little flower there, or a couple of flowers, and actually pop those on the front. We'll mirror them around and pop them in the front. Haven't got decided. This is all part of the stamens. Charles, what about using I-cords and bobbles for the stamens? Yes, Charles. I'm liking where you're going with this. Exactly. And this is isn't this part of the planning, Charles, isn't it? Just creating and having having a bit of fun with it. So those are the sorts of things that I am just sort of messing about with at the moment. And in fact, looking at this chart, Charles, I think you're right. That's exactly what they've gone and done. They've played around a little bit with the color, and looking at one of the things, there are actually some bobbles that they've built in. They've gone and built in some texture up here in this little run here, and they've gone and built some texture in just in here. So it's about having a good play around and having some fun about what we're going to do. Now, I've got loads of time to get this done. There is absolutely no rush, and I'm not going to, but I just want to sort of start, just having just some fun, just getting the planning together, or even work the background as shown and then add 3D petals attached to the top. Stop it, Charles. You'll get, there's loads of different things that we can do with this. And I think this is, and I mean, there's also too, just looking at this, the way they've got this designed, there's three little kind of petals of colour there. Now, if this is the back, imagine, as Charles described, doing those and then actually having those actually as extra petals or sitting up over the shoulder. There's loads of stuff you can do. Loads of stuff. So that's where I'm at with that. I'm having a little bit of fun just plotting and planning and playing around. And this is where, not being afraid of gauge, not being afraid of basic shapes. I mean, let's face it, this is just a rectangle with a keyhole at the top cut out. I mean, we're not talking difficult, standard, old-fashioned standard shoulder shaping. I mean, I may look at that and decide, actually, no, I might do those shoulders in short rows. Haven't quite decided. If I'm going bottom up, I'll make that decision when I get there. But no, you've got to have a little bit of fun. Margaret, tiny size, you would need a whole subdivision. I know the sizes are really tiny, but you know what? When you start playing around with it, though, we'll burgle the size. We can burgle the size. Everybody, we can make that happen. It is absolutely no problem whatsoever. So that is what I am having a good fiddle about at the moment. What else is happening here in store? So obviously the shop is open today. We are going to touch base after tonight, because that's the majority. It's I don't know whether you can hear it, but it's absolutely chucking it down here now. So the weather has really started to set in as planned. And then we will make a call we'll just have to see where the flooding and stuff is at tomorrow. If there's no flooding and everything is as it is today, then we'll it'll be business as usual, but we won't know that until we sort of sun comes up tomorrow morning, and then we can see what's going on. So that is the plan for all of that. What else have we got? Oh, don't forget the vintage. Showed you the vintage before. That is still on sale. That is on sale for $3.95. That is going to be a permanent price drop as we move out these current batches. So from now through epic sale and beyond until it's all gone. So do make sure you get that into your stash. And if you are a charity knitter, or you know someone who's a charity knitter, it's a really good time to get hold of that because it's just such a great yarn for charity knitting and a brilliant yarn for intarsia knitting if you want to have some fun with intarsia, which I think is loads of fun to have. The Cascade wall is now in the shop and looking fabulous. And it's so hard because I'm itching to do the Cascade, and I looked at it and I thought, oh, I really want to do the Cascade. But I didn't. I stopped myself from doing it. And the reason why I did it is we've done a massive single shipment, and we know that we can't do any replenishments of what we've got. And the last thing I want is to pull together and do this project in the Cascade. And if anyone wants to have a bit of fun and join along with me in doing it, we may not be able to get the stock. So I thought Southlander is a much safer bet, because if you want to sort of do it just as I'm doing it, or as close to or very similar, Southlander is something that everyone will be able to get their sticky paws on. And we've got plenty of that available and in stock. So that's why we will be doing that. So that's some really good fun there too. So that is the plans on that. And other than that, we're just sort of hunkering down and getting prepped and ready for the big sale next month. A little bit more about that towards the end of the month, just to fill you in, but that's all the plans for that are progressing forward and doing really, really well. The only other thing that Claire wants me to mention to you is obviously with the weather, there could be weather-based delivery disruptions, particularly if you're in the north. We do apologise in advance for those, but the warehouse team is still working, so you can still place orders as normal. And touch wood, the disruptions will be minimal and minor. So I'm going to head off, nice and short and sweet today. Thank you for waiting to come and join me. I know I was late. And I will talk to you, hopefully, fingers crossed, touch wood, with a finished project on Thursday. That would be so cool. Until then, take care, and I will talk to you again then. Bye.